The Zoom room where we have standing by. We do it every other Wednesday with the Speaker of the 36th Guam Legislature, Senator Therese Terlaje. Good morning, Madam Speaker.
Good morning, Chris. Good morning, Sabrina. Good morning, Jason. Good morning, Guam.
Good morning.
Good morning, Speaker.
I guess we can we just start with this session update because TBH we haven't been watching, or at least saw a little bit yesterday. But what's going on with session, Madam Speaker?
Sure. So most recently, in the last 2 days, we've been in committee of the whole for appropriations bills. And so we just finished those 4 appropriations bills, one bond bill, and we will now be going back into second reading with two more bills on the agenda so far. And so I expect to finish those 2 bills today in the afternoon and vote on Friday. That's my expectation, of course, unless something else is added to the agenda. But to my knowledge, I think we're wrapping it up with the two last bills. We've passed all the other bills to third reading. There have been several bills. One of them is regarding sole source, is regarding disclosure of information for those who are awarded contracts with the government of Guam, so that we get a list of all of the shareholders of a corporation, for example. That's a bill by Sabina Paris. There's other bills. That the 2 that we are still going to act on are extending the deadline for the customs area over there near the port. Their deadline to act on that property, expires. So we're extending that. So they're looking for the funding now, and they're going to build a building there for inspections. We're also going to act on the theft of livestock or agricultural products bill by Clint Rigel. And we're going to act on the bill, sorry, there were 3. And then we're going to act on the bill to change the name of Inarahan to Inalahan. And I think you watched the hearing on that. And anyways, yeah, so we yesterday talked about some revenue savings in refinancing the BPT bond. And so we would see about 5 million in savings for fiscal year 21, and then about 13 million in savings next year. So we were able to put a provision in there that dedicates some of that savings towards food distribution, additional food distribution, in addition to all the current resources, because we were worried that despite government resources, nonprofit resources going towards this, that there still seems to be a huge need, just evidenced by the long lines for people who are willing to line up for hours just to get food. And so while we wait for additional federal funds, while we wait for our new budget, for FY22, that in the interim, that if we are able, that we dedicate some money towards that. And the legislature so far has 94 bills introduced, 9 bills passed, 7 bills into law, 2 vetoed, and 19 oversights and briefings. I think that's kind of more than we've seen in months in the last term. So I think they're being very diligent in, oversight of the different agencies.
Is there an effort to override the governor's veto of Bill 11? Is that on the agenda?
Well, there hasn't been a motion yet. There's still opportunity for that. In fact, that motion can be made anytime, not even during this session, but in any session. So far, no motion, and but I'm not sure of the sponsors' plans. But.
We didn't get a chance to talk to you, but the 27 pages of sole source procurement, yes. Emergency procurement. Have you had a chance to look over that list or even speak to GSA about it?
So I did look at the list, of course, and then I asked GSA formally for a more thorough list, the one that has, the complete names. They've actually told me that that's not possible unless they do it manually, which will take time, or that they change their program, which is very surprising to me and very frustrating, of course. So I'm still following up on that. I don't think we can operate like this. So the reporting is really not satisfactory if that's how it's going to come in.
Right.
They need to change that.
So what does the law say, that they just got to turn a report in then that's it. It doesn't say it has to be a complete report, a legible report, a report that you
Well,
actually.
obviously, I think if you say report, it has to be complete. I think there's no way they can argue that that is, satisfactory. They know that that they need to do something else. They just, claim that the program won't let them do that, and they have to do it manually. So I'm asking them to do that.
Madam Speaker, it kind of seems like, I mean, even us and just going through this 27 pages, because the information's so incomplete, we had to then kind of look at some of the expenditures that were maybe eyebrow raising or whatever, and then send a FOIA, and we're still waiting to get the documents back. But, I mean, I know there's 15 of you guys, but just in having to go through these purchases, I mean, really with a fine-tooth comb, it's looking like it's going to be a gargantuan task. You know what I mean? And I mean, essentially, we could be looking at you guys just having to sift through. I mean, not even eventually. I mean, it's going to be thousands and thousands of pages of documents. So what format do you think is best? I know that Senator Sabina said she's going to call an oversight, but is that even going to be enough time to really ask questions when you guys don't have the full plate of information before you already?
Well, I think, we've asked for the information, so we should get information before any oversight hearing as much as possible so that we can narrow down the issues for that hearing. And I'm sure that Senator Perez will do that. She's very efficient and not going to waste time on trying just to get, what those list of names are. So hopefully we get that as soon as possible, hopefully in the next couple of days, and then we move on and, really determine whether there was some impropriety or not. GSA is standing by their, procurement and
right,
saying that all of these were up and up. They just look, unusual to us, but we'll continue to look closer.
Right. We had Claudia on a little pre-oversight hearing, if you will. But it was tough because, like you said, and just wading into this with so little information, it's really hard to even figure out what questions to ask. And she had said something like, obviously she's been the chief procurement officer as the government of Guam has changed hands with the leadership from administration to administration. So, I want to say I feel like she should know what she's doing. But there was something she had said where, I get the 3 quotes and the da-da-da-da. And I think at the end of the day, like I told her, if you go through this process and you follow all the rules that you're supposed to follow, I don't think it really matters to the public if the purchase and the items that you're purchasing just don't seem justifiable, like all this furniture and some of the other things,
Yes, well, some of it, is it doesn't look like emergency, right?
Right.
To our layman's view. Some of it might just be sole source. So that's another one of the issues is kind of they're all seem lumped together. And so we're hoping they
And some of
distinguish.
some of it she said, because when you add it up, it's like almost 28 million, I think, in for both sole source and emergency procurement. But then she was like, well, some of those purchase orders were terminated. So it doesn't necessarily mean that, 28 million really was spent on all these purchase orders, like the Cliff Hotel. When you add it up, it's 150,000 for a facility we never used.
Right. So we're supposed to be seeing the contracts, right? So those are the various contracts. We don't know the other side of it. Like you said, Sabrina, how much has actually been paid under those contracts? That's a whole other question. Yeah. A whole other can of worms.
Is that like a whole other report?
Yeah, that's a DOA thing, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I think, the intent of the law in these reporting, of course, is to get adequate information. So this is a very clear case that, give all the information possible. Otherwise, it's just not going to meet the intent of the law. And we're going to keep running around in circles. And I'm just going to give them the benefit of the doubt at this point that this is not an intentional, trying to hide information, but we'll give them a few more days, and just see. And of course, the oversight hearing will help that flush out all the information. But it shouldn't be so hard. I totally agree with you all, and that you shouldn't have to FOIA, these agencies to get this type of information. That's why the reporting requirements are there, so that the information is readily available particularly in these cases where there's sole source or emergency procurement. We always know these are the highly suspect, immediately suspect procurement. So we just want to look at those quickly. And
Madam Speaker, you guys should also look at the under 10,000 purchases, because when we asked Claudia how many of those there were, she said, "Oh, there's a lot." Like that, she was like, "Oh, there's a lot."
Yeah. So yes, you're right, and we get reports of those also.
Okay.
Well, no, I'm sorry, we get the reports of the over 10,000.
Yeah. So that's where I think a lot of stuff is. Maybe you're going to find another more interesting list. Madam Speaker, I wanted to talk to you because we had Jack Hattig on here a few weeks ago about this. There's an incident with the Chamorro Land Trust, a land agent who had alleged that Jack had somehow influenced her, coerced her, and then there was also, I believe, an allegation of forgery thrown out by Senator Joanne Brown. She wrote a very tersely worded letter to the governor. And so we had Jack on about it, and I know since then the development had been that the chairman of the CLTC had, they went into executive session, I think, for a couple hours. He issued a report that we haven't seen. But as the land chair, did you have eyes on this whole thing? And what was your take on it from the start to, I guess, what is seeming like, was this thing resolved already, or?
I do know that, like you said, they went into executive session. I have not seen the report out of that executive session. I do not know what occurred in there, and so I'm not sure whether it is truly resolved. I think for our purposes, we want to be satisfied that these agents are free to give the facts and not in any way that their jobs are interfered with, because the commissioners who are making these decisions, it's really on them to get the true facts from these agents, because otherwise they would not be making proper decisions, right? And so I think the commissioners are very concerned, and so I kind of left it to the chair for a little while to figure that out and see what they're going to do, but I'm of course going to follow up. I just think, again, everybody can have recommendations. Those recommendations should be separate from what a land agent might say are the facts of the case. And so those things just need to be distinguished. The commissioners need to be very, very active. One of the issues with the Chamorro Land Trust for years has been, commissioners kind of defaulting to the executive directors, and they can't do that. We cannot afford that. They have to be very diligent. And so this is one of those cases. I want to commend that land agent for speaking out. I mean, I think that takes these, my work as a senator has really led me to believe that despite employees being classified, employees of the government of Guam are still under great fear of being, adversely affected by reporting things in the government. So, if there's one thing I want to say, it's that, we are taking those things very seriously. I commend her for bringing that out, and bringing that out in public is it takes huge courage. It shouldn't, right? It should be these employees are classified, they are protected, they cannot be, harmed in their jobs, but they are still very afraid of that. And so I just think we need to remove that type of environment where employees are feeling coerced. That should not be tolerated. And I will be speaking with the chairman and the rest of the commissioners to see if they feel, that they are able to do this. This is another thing, everybody is, we go through confirmation hearings. Some of these board members are confirmed for periods of 4, sometimes 6 years without any type of review. And I'm concerned about that too, because I just think, being on the job for that long, it gives you a lot of knowledge, but it also might, lead to some complacency. And we need to keep all the directors, accountable.
Right. And what I thought was also interesting was during the last CLTC meeting there was a woman who testified that she had received a lease in 1996, I believe. She waited in line in 1995 for hours, and then and she was even pregnant. And so in 1996, she was awarded a lease, and she'd been paying property taxes. It was current, and then come to find out, the property that she was given was also leased to somebody else in like 2017, I want to say. And she was kind of frustrated because how could this happen? And so, in the meeting, I want to say that they tabled it because they couldn't get a hold of the other woman that got the same piece of property. And I'm not sure, is this like a common thing over at the Chamorro Land Trust Commission?
Well, there continue to be challenges like that. That's for sure. I don't think they're out of the woods by any means in regards to these types of issues. Some of the issues that come up, and I think it might apply to that case, are that, we passed the Chamorro Land Trust law back in the 70s. In the interim, there was a law passed that said that anyone who was residing on this property since a certain time period could get a proof of that from the mayor, submit it to the land trust, and then they would not be evicted from the property. So unfortunately, that sometimes is the case, that we're leasing property that was previously occupied, and then we end up with conflicts, or they just make errors with the lots and there are conflicts. But I think that's one of the more prevalent ones, is that when there's some occupier that the Chamorro Land Trust was not aware of, or that they gave a lease to, they're entitled now to give leases to those previously occupied lands according to one of the laws. Right. These laws were all in place prior, to me becoming a senator, but they have been creating conflicts for the Chamorro Land Trust over all these years. I think we need to, me personally, I want to relook at this law that allows, only on one mayor's verification that says you've been occupying this property for this many years. Because the issue is not that, I don't trust the mayors. The issue is that we have lots of witnesses to say otherwise, right? And so I want to create that opportunity where the trust has to hear from those witnesses as well, or at least try to, before they just give the property over.
Any update on the public health investigation into the allegations of the nurses that were assigned to the government quarantine facility? Because, we did have DOA Director Edward Byrne on a couple of weeks ago, and he was saying that, he hasn't gotten any requests to do any sort of independent review or audit of any public health timesheets. So he wasn't sure what public health was talking about, because, like I said, he said that there was no such request that was made, and that public health handles their own timesheets. So have you received any updates from Mr. San Augustine?
Not since the last update that I gave you, and he even gave me a very specific name as to who at DOA was doing these reviews. And I'm sorry I missed that interview with Mr. Byrne, but that is concerning. Yeah, no, I was not aware that that's Mr. Byrne's position. In fact, I kind of thought that this matter was resolved. I thought that they had taken action, with the employees that the allegations were made against, and that they had restructured the quarantine, nursing, and so that to prevent any of those types of behavior to be repeated.
Have you heard anything?
As to the timesheets, all I can tell you is that the director, definitely gave me a name at DOA who they were working with to review these timesheets. And I know that they had said that they had sent it to DOA just so that it would be independent, right, outside of their own agency. But I will follow up. That's news to me. I'm sorry, Sabrina. I can't update from that.
Have you heard anything else about this isolation facility, or if they were going to move it yet, or?
Well, I think, we are both in the same boat. They've told us different stories and hard to get confirmation. My understanding, and this is maybe rumor, not sure. So it's just an understanding. I'm not confirming it for you, but is that they are having procurement issues right? So that it's the procurement is what they are waiting on. That it's still in the process. So I will wait and see.
Okay.
I don't know what we were told at the oversight hearing, of course, and my report on the oversight hearing is coming out today, but we were told very clearly at that time that they had decided to consolidate, right, the isolation and quarantine facilities, that they were going to move them. And but now I'm not so sure that is actually what's happening. So like you, things are changing every day, despite what's said one day, the next day sometimes we see a change.
Rapidly evolving or rapidly devolving?
Yeah, but we're paying a lot of money for an isolation facility.
Yes, of course, right? And even that hard to get a handle on. They keep claiming those are all going to be reimbursed through FEMA, and so I want to see the new procurement, what the arrangement is, and whether that's reimbursable as well.
I think we asked you about this the last time you were on, but I wanted to follow up because things always change. Have you heard anything, or are you aware if there are any sort of investigations into online gambling over at the legislature involving any members or any senators or any employees?
I am not aware. And, my office is open. I feel like no one has brought any allegations to me. Otherwise, I would have probably referred it to our ethics committees or, GPD. But no, I've not received any allegations.
Okay.
That I can confirm.
Oh, you said ethics committee. I wanted to go back. Were there complaints made last term to the ethics committee, and then are there any made this term? And then do you know the status? Because it kind of seems like every time I try and ask about the ethics committee, it's almost like a who's on first. They're trying to figure out, this quarter it's this senator, but then if there's a full moon, then it's the other senator, and we can't get a quorum. You know what I'm saying, Madam Speaker. So any update?
Well, I think I'm going to claim responsibility. I think it was one of my suggestions for the standing rules a couple of years ago that we alternate members of the ethics committee. I didn't think it was fair or wise that we keep the same people on the ethics committee throughout the year. So what we did was we instituted a rotating process. So it's like 3 members are appointed, but then 3 other members every 3 months or every quarter, it changes. So that's kind of the schedule. And it's kind of like at the public defender, whatever comes in during your term, you handle those all the way through to the end. And the next term, whatever comes in during that time, you handle those. So to my knowledge, I should be the one that knows because the complaints are supposed to come through the speaker's office. There have been no complaints this term. Yes, I do know there were complaints last term because,
Didn't Samantha, Madam Speaker, sorry, stand by because we're just a little late getting with you, but let me just sign off on TV to our viewers on KUAM TV, the radio side, we're at KUAM FM Magatni Guam on the breeze. My name's Chris.
I'm Sabrina.
Esta, KUAM TV, adios. And we are back. I asked because I remember last term, wasn't there a complaint that was filed by former DOC Director Samantha Brennan regarding the leak of her, I want to say her confidential medical documents? But there was, I believe her attorney had written a letter to the body last term. But what has happened with that? Because, obviously the public doesn't want to feel like if there's a complaint issued that it just gets swept under the rug and dies. So sorry to spring that on you, Madam Speaker, but it just popped.
Yes, I don't want to speculate. I would ask that that question needs to be brought up with the chair of that committee at that time. And I'm trying to recall who that might be. I would have to look it up. And
it was Senator San Augustine.
It was Senator San Augustine. That's right. Yeah.
Okay. I haven't heard anything about old complaints or old committees, so I'm just going to, now this I might speculate that I don't think any of those are active at this point because of the ending of the term. So those committees actually became I'm going to bring that up with legal, but I don't think that one term's complaints are going to be carried over into the next, unfortunately. But the difference now in this term is that we do have an ethics commission, right, in the government of Guam. So I am thinking that would help, in having another set of eyes look at things. And perhaps the changeover, if you have a complaint at the end of the 2 years, that's going to also help, when legislatures switch. Instead of that, we've got a permanent ethics commission. Yeah.
Are you still having your weekly meetings with the governor?
They're Zoom calls, and she pretty much gives us an update. Yes. So this week, we were not able to do that on Monday. But otherwise, yes. Okay. She pretty much gives us an update. For example, last week we received the update, and then I think within an hour there was a press conference, and so all of that same information was, more information was given out at the press conference. So, but yes, the governor's still meeting with myself and the head of the Mayor's Council, Jesse Alec.
Okay.
I don't know if you. One of the other things that the legislature is working on now is that we have been invited by the Supreme Court to file a brief in response to the governor's declaratory judgment case that she brought at the Supreme Court. So she was originally asking, for a determination as to whether the courts couldn't, interfere with her quarantine powers under the Organic Act. And now, in one of her reply briefs, she's stated that the two sections of the health emergency law are inorganic, and those are the isolation and quarantine sections, the sections that lay out all the details of how, you have a right to go to court, you have a right to, argue that you should be let out of quarantine. So now it's new. It just happened last week that this argument is being made that those sections of the law are inorganic. So I've talked to my colleagues, and we're confirming formally today, I hope, but pretty much I've got their commitment that they all support that we are going to respond in the case, because it's a separation of powers argument, and the argument is, or the question is, does the legislature have a power to enact these laws regarding quarantine, or is it the governor's quarantine powers under the Organic Act, blanket, sole power, but aren't, on first glance, the Organic Act says subject to the laws of Guam. So, like with many things in healthcare and other parts of the government, while the governor has great powers, she is still subject to the laws of Guam. And so that's what this case is going to be about, is whether these statutes outlining the process are inorganic or not. So we're working on a response to that.
On that note, we talk about separation of powers, and with this RISE Act, $600 million coming down, I know that a few of the senators we had on, especially with the release of this 27 pages of the sole source emergency procurement, they seem to think that is kind of writing on the wall that maybe we need to be a little more involved in how money's being spent. I mean, especially with this American Rescue Plan. So are there any efforts to maybe tighten things up, Madam Speaker, or otherwise challenge the governor on how and where this huge amount of money is going to be spent?
I would venture to say yes, that every senator has that on the top of their mind, and everyone is trying to think of a way, just like they have in other states, to have an impact on the use of that money, or at least to have some type of oversight to ensure that that money is used, in the best interest of the people of Guam. And to do that in a timely fashion. Now, that is the challenge, right? Because getting reports after the fact is something that we can do, but getting real-time knowledge or even advanced knowledge and being able to weigh in on something that we think is a bad idea, I think those are all very valid. And yes, I would venture to say that senators are strategizing for that. we're going to continue to work on that. I just think that that's a normal process all across the states. While all the governors will say that, it's solely within their discretion, we've seen across the states too that they've all tried, NCSL even has a, briefing on this, that the different efforts that the state legislatures have tried to influence that spending, or just to ensure that it's going to go to the most needed places. Now, our biggest tool in this, of course, and you've heard from Senator San Augustine, oversight of the appropriations, the budget that's coming up, it's going to have a huge effect on how we treat this budget. Whether we treat this budget as, I just think that's going to have it's going to be a big factor. I think if we don't know at the time of we do the budget where that money is going to be spent, then we're going to treat the budget totally differently. And if we know, then we can, of course, ensure with our budget to fill any gaps, right? And so it should be a collaborative process. And I've seen this also in other states. They have systems set up that are very collaborative, and that's what I think is the best way to go forward. And I've asked the governor that we need to collaborate. I think the more we do that, then we don't have to, have any disputes. We will be on the same page. And I think that's the goal of the government. If we can get on the same page going forward, if we're talking about priorities for the people of Guam, I can't see any reason why we won't be able to agree, right? If we just work together.
I just had one final question on whether or not, is there any word on when Congressman Michael St. Nicholas is going to be giving his annual address?
Not final word. Preliminarily, I think he said he wanted to do it at beginning of April.
Okay.
But no, we're still waiting for the final word. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to that. Yes, yeah. I just think the more information we receive, the better, of course. So I'm looking forward to that.
Well, thank you.
Anything in closing, Madam Speaker?
We're still waiting for guidelines on this, the use of that the $600 million. Still waiting for guidelines from that. I've asked the congressman if he's got access to guidelines. Apparently, they're just not available yet. So we're hoping that those guidelines will be shared with us immediately when they are received by the governor or her team or by the congressman, or sent directly to us. Yeah, I think those are very important. Once we get the parameters of how that money can be spent, then we can react, with how we control local funds as well.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thanks, Speaker.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll
Appreciate
see you.
it. Thank you, guys. Good work. Keep it up.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Have a good
That's
day.
it. Okay. It's 8:11, guys. Coming up, Superintendent John Fernandez. But there was some breaking national news that we wanted to touch on this morning at 8:12. Again, it's Wednesday, March 24th. On the link brought to you by East West Rental.